Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you lovely folks joining me here nice and early at Marvel Snap Zone. Welcome back for another installment of Infinite Decks of the Week, the series where I walk you through the more unique decks that are making it to the infinite rank of the game this week. In the wake of a balance patch, I normally do my best, and I'm obviously very excited to showing you the things that are making their way into the metagame, becoming metagame staples as a new archetype, new metagame starts to form. In the internet age, it's really hard to keep things a surprise for too long. There are creators and websites just like ourselves constantly showcasing new decks, ranking them, explaining them to the wider player base. Because of that, decks travel exceptionally fast, and so for the most part, this is always a great opportunity to introduce new archetypes to a competitive landscape and gives us a real fresh feeling in Marvel Snap. Unfortunately, the most recent balance patch hasn't really offered that, with barely any new synergies really feeling good or rising against the dominance of Shuri Zero. With that deck barely being touched, Shuri and Red Skull have felt mostly dominant over the last 2 weeks, largely limiting exactly how creative and how much discovery can happen without playing a card like Shang-Chi or Valkyrie, two of the most popular countercards to the deck. In fact, most of the success that hasn't come from Shuri Zero this week is actually the resurgence of Thanos LockThor, the other deck that was arguably the most nerfed from the previous patch, leading us back to a metagame that's looking exactly like the one at the end of last season. In that context, what else can we really be expecting to rise in Marvel Snap? Well, it's going to be mostly familiar faces this week, I'm afraid, but in a context where there's a lot of known information and where it's kind of arguably quite difficult to surprise with an archetype, maybe we can find some deck lists that have a few twists in how they're built and have a couple of spicy cards to catch the opponent off guard. If they think they know the entire story by turn 3, then maybe your unexpected 12th card can steal you 8 cubes when your opponent confidently stays in a game they thought they had won or didn't know was lost already. Are those cards among this week's lists? Let's take a look and find out. If you do enjoy this type of series, do me a favour, leave a comment down below about how you feel about the metagame and deck lists right now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Marvel Snap Zone if you haven't done so already, and drop a like on the video for us to show that we're doing an okay job. Let's take a look at some of these cool deck lists, huh? This week's first deck just comes from Rob. Rob hit Infinite in Marvel Snap this season and is still loving the game, playing a LockThor style deck from rank 75 upwards with a little bit of other things mixed in. It looks a little bit like this one. When it comes to Lockjaw, the card has been on a bit of an emotional roller coaster since the balance patch happened. First, its alliance with Thanos took a bit of a dive in the ratings and the stats, as what was the best deck lost a lot of its explosive power. A week later, the Death variant has restored its reputation and looks to be a metagame contender once again. In the shadows of a Thanos build, it was a pure Lockjaw on reveal deck that many people turned to. This is the one that Rob used to get to the infinite rank. It's a solid deck, but never really gained much momentum ever since the Thanos list came out. Even without the spotlight, the deck is still going strong and getting players to the highest rank in the game. While it doesn't pack the same number of high rolls as the Series 5 build, we can still see many cards worth being called a win condition here. Leech, Dracula, Jubilee, and of course Lockjaw, the now budget variant for this archetype, is far from being a deck that you should be forgetting about. In these times of reconsidering what the best build is around Lockjaw, and even if Death, Killmonger, and Wave are building a very strong case, maybe going back to the basics is a good way to look at it. Next up, we have our very own Blue Spruce from the Can't Stop Snapping podcast, sharing their first ever Infinite reached from rank 70 this season. They did things a little differently. It's not often that people share many decks in their Infinite rank tweets. Apart from the Patriot list that you see on screen now, they also featured a Mr. Negative and Silver Surfer build. Most of the time, changing or switching between decks can often hurt a player's climb, as we aren't developing comfort as we go. Comfort can be a very important part of racking up cubes when you're grinding, as it leads to recognizing situations faster and just making faster connections overall. Two rather critical traits in order to snap before your opponent understands your deck, or to get out of a game before things have gone too far wrong. As a coach to some people, as a player in general, it's hard for me to recommend changing decks often for those reasons and for others. But there are a few benefits to changing deck and having some kind of rotation between a few comfort picks, especially for players like myself, because for me, playing the same thing over and over can get really annoying really fast. For some players, instead of building a needed experience, we mostly want to work towards not being bored and playing worse because we're bored. If you rotate through a deck with a similar game plan, you can retain some of the benefits of keeping the same deck, while more unique situations will arise in the process. That way, you fight off your boredom and don't hurt your capacity to develop your understanding of specific mechanics all at the same time. With 3 decks in this tweet relying on similar strategies, they're all looking to develop their game plan in the mid to late part of the game. This was looking like it was a fine lineup to tackle the ladder this month. Finally, is it truly Electro Sandman's time to rise? This one coming from Ravelord Nitto, also their first time reaching Infinite this season, but they ranked up from rank 51 to 100 pretty much exclusively with Electro Sandman builds. They had a few versions in their tweet, and they had one with Arnim, Zola and Black Panther. They switched away from into this more stock build as Armor and Cosmo began to become more prevalent. Shuri Zero still definitely stands in the way of this deck. Overall, I think they're pretty happy to play just 1 card a turn. Otherwise, most other archetypes in the metagame right now have followed the recipe of staying flexible for as long as they possibly can and trying to explode over the course of the last 2 turns with keeping as much information as they can from the opponent. Although we already featured this one last week, it still seems to have picked up in the popularity polls overall when it comes to reaching the infinite rank. Yet, just like Ravenlord Nitto explained in the tweet, the safer, less combo-orientated version might be more suited to the amount of Cosmo and Armor that are still too popular right now to rely on specific destroy or on-reveal based synergies. We've got a bonus little deck this week as well, showcasing that you really can put Shuri and Red Skull into just about whatever you like. This one comes from Adam Hart, another player who's made Infinite for the very first time this season in Marble Snap, and this list took them from the 80s up into the hundreds, and they make it clear they don't have Null yet and that Wolverine might be replaceable in the archetype going forward. It's a hybrid Galactus list featuring Shuri, Red Skull and Taskmaster. If you think about it, apart from Taskmaster, who really feels included because of Shuri and Red Skull, the other 2 make sense in a Galactus deck. Here are a few play patterns where both cards could shine. You can Shuri into Dr. Octopus, emptying your opponent's hand and still having a shot at winning that lane. That would open up the way for a turn 6 Taskmaster or Red Skull to win a second lane if you don't have your Galactus. After we've played Galactus, Red Skull plus Death feels like a pretty difficult duo to beat if you don't have a Shang-Chi available. Ever since the nerf of only giving +1 power to opposing cards, Red Skull has felt quite strong even against full lanes from the opponent. Similarly, Death and Taskmaster can do a similar job. With a turn 4 Galactus thanks to Wave, Shuri allows for a fantastic turn 6 without ever giving priority back. This means potentially slamming down a 24 power Death alongside a Shang-Chi because you don't have priority. I really hate this vacuum I find myself in recently of having to constantly be the bearer of bad news, and this series was created by us here at Marble Snap Zone to celebrate the accomplishment of people who are reaching their goals in Marble Snap. Still, we are barely 2 weeks into this supposedly new metagame, and the 2 most discussed decks are Shuri Zero and which LockThor build is the optimal one. Through a bit of digging, there are other decks that are worth talking about in the current metagame, but they just don't have the status of safe to climb with immediately, making them more limited towards the end of a season where we find ourselves right now. Electro Ramp feels kinda like an exception in this context and could be considered the gatekeeper of the metagame. With its ability to shut down many game plans with Sandman, the deck might work in favour of Shuri Zero overall. Highly synergistic decks based around cheap cards who have an easier time incorporating cards like Shang-Chi or Valkyrie into their plan definitely fear playing against Electro Ramp. Hitmonkey is the next Season Pass card and should largely favour those synergistic decks, pushing them towards holding resources for an explosive turn 6. This will be the perfect environment for Sandman to shine and keep Shuri very strong in the process as a result. I have to admit, I'm very curious about what the start of the next season will look like and how it will pan out, as we could see things kind of balance on their own, or quickly feel another wave of balancing is due in Marvel Snap. As always, we'll keep reporting on everything that's happening in the metagame, starting with a tier list coming out early next week. If you want to keep in touch, you're always welcome to reach out in the comment section down below. Find the team over on Twitter at Marvel Snap Zone, DenCCG or HowlingMines, or come and visit our community Discord server where you can talk Marvel Snap 24 hours a day with thousands and thousands of other Marvel Snap players. But until next time, I've been HowlingMines, you have been amazing, and this has been Marvel Snap Zone. Take care of yourself. Have a good one.